Baxie's musical podcast.
Resistance is useless!
When people think of punk music, they tend to think of one thing. They usually think about a guy like Sid Vicious swinging a bass guitar like a 9-iron so he can brain a guy for spitting on the stage. But the fact is, there are many different kinds of punk music. There's pre-punk, post-punk, hardcore, skatecore, Celtic punk, cowpunk, Christian punk, death rock, emo, which is about as far from punk as you can actually get, street punk, ska punk, and every possible subgenre imaginable. So to call something punk is already a false attempt to define something that's been virtually undefinable from as far back as the 1960s. To make matters more confusing, each genre can also be divided up into specific regional scenes. There was the New York underground scene, there was a scene in London, scenes in Boston, Washington, D.C., Minneapolis, and of course, there was the West Coast scene as well, where several wildly influential bands would define what many people believed was where all punk was headed. The real fans just referred to it as music, and it's music that scared the crap out of everyone's parents, if it's done correctly. And among the people at the center of the reckless mayhem of West Coast hardcore had been Keith Morris. Keith Morris had been the original lead singer for Black Flag, also the co-founder of the Circle Jerks, also fronts the band Off. In 2016, Keith Morris wrote the book My Damage, the story of a punk rock survivor. In it, he talks about his career, music, getting sober, and staying healthy. He's opinionated, quirky, and always passionate. So here's my interview with Keith Morris from the Circle Jerks on Baxie's musical podcast. The first thing I wanted to say is, I set this up, this interview about a week ago, and
right.
I get this email from this guy, and he couldn't be nicer, and he said, "Yeah, I'll be happy to set something up with Keith." And I'm from Concord, Mass, and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. This guy seems perfectly reasonable." And I see the bottom of the email, and I see this name. I said, "Dimitri, who the hell? Dimitri Coates? Who the hell is that?" I'm like, that name is familiar. It took me about 24 hours to say, "Oh shit, that's the guy from Off." And I thought, "Wow, Keith Morris has Dimitri Coates answering his calls and setting up his appointments. That's a pretty good arrangement."
Well, what happens is people write into to like the Off the Off email address, and all of it goes through Dimitri. And Dimitri sorts it out, and Dimitri passes it on to me. Dimitri said, "You want to do this?" And I said, "Well, I'm so busy right now, we're going to have to tell this guy he's going to have to try back in about 3 months." And, of course, Dimitri got that. It's like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'm not doing anything else."
Right.
I'm sitting here reading posts on Facebook. I've certainly got better things to do than that, although I am listening to a lot of music. I'm listening to a lot of records. And I'm also doing a lot of cooking at home.
Everybody is.
Which was something that I had completely abandoned for about 3 years. So now, I get to make some of my favorite things. I've discovered the greatness of granola. on various levels, with sliced mango and fresh blueberries and maybe a little bit of orange juice. I don't use dairy products, but I do love cheese. I had some cheese, and I ordered Mexican food on Sunday. I get to order. I get home delivery. Mm-hmm. And so I get to order something that I would not normally eat during the week. And so on Sunday I ordered a couple of cheese enchiladas and a chicken taco with some black beans and some guacamole.
Hey.
And I'm just going to keep going and going. And I ate one of the enchiladas for dinner, and then I had the other enchilada for breakfast with a couple of eggs, with the guacamole and the pico de gallo, and I was just like, this shit's the best thing that anybody ever did.
A few months ago, somebody gave me a copy of your book, My Damage, and it sounds, just hearing you talk about what you're eating, it almost sounds like you're finally taking health seriously. And I think that's probably for the best.
Well, yeah, but not eating that greasy Mexican food. That's like have a heart attack.
Yeah, right. But
when you're eating chips and salsa, the salsa might be healthy for you, but the chips aren't. Because they're deep fried.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Party hard every now and then. It's not going to be the end of your world.
Right. Well, I have to say, after reading the book, I was kind of surprised that you made it long enough to write a book. It sounded like you went pretty hard at it for a long, long time.
There were a lot of years where it was just cheeseburgers and pizza, and pasta. And I'm not saying pasta is bad for you, but it's when people eat pasta, they eat it in the wrong amounts.
Right.
Whatever you're putting on the pasta, like your chopped tomatoes and your basil and your onions and your if you're going to go cilantro, if you're going to go rosemary, or your oregano and your olive oil, you want that to be the major portion of your meal. Everybody always seems to think that they've got to have a plate full of pasta with a ladle of whatever they're putting on top of it. It's supposed to be reversed.
Right. And as a diabetic, I mean, you have to be real mindful of what you're putting into your system all the time.
Well, the thing is that you want to, if you're on the border, if you're close to becoming a diabetic, the first thing you want to do is you want to cut all of your carbs in half. And it's not about sugar. It's about the carbs. And there's carbs in a lot of things that we eat. Even when we think we're eating healthy, there's still carbs. Now, granted, they're minimal amount of carbs, and you do need carbs because if you're a car, you need gasoline to run your car. And that's what carbs are. So my grandfather, who was type 2, came down with diabetes very late in his life, and they said, you're going to take a pill in the morning, and here's what you're going to do with your food intake. Whatever carbs you're eating, which includes bread, pasta, fruit, you cut it in half. You're going to eat a sandwich, you eat half a sandwich. You can eat the other half sandwich later on for another meal. You're going to eat a banana, you eat half the banana, you can eat the other half of the banana later on. It's not going to be the end of your world. That's just what you do.
So you guys, the Circle Jerks were back up until just a few weeks ago. You had a tour all set. It was the 40th anniversary tour of or celebration of Group Sex, your debut album. And then this pandemic hits. Tell me about first of all, what the status is of that tour. I know some dates have been pushed to next year, but what's the arc of the deciding to postpone some of these dates and what that means for you guys?
Well, let's look at the situation. We're dealing with large groups of people in spaces where there might not be a really great airflow.
Right.
There might not be any kind of breeze blowing through the room, and you need that. That's like one of the most important things, is that there's some kind of airflow. The situation is that why would we go out there and want to put any of our fans' lives at risk?
Right.
It's not worth it. We love playing. We were probably about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks away from actually being ready to go out and play. Now, when I say being ready to go out and play, I mean having the conditioning to do it. When you're an older guy and you get up there and you're doing something that's like a young man's thing, you better be prepared to do it. Otherwise, you're going to get your ass kicked. And when we auditioned drummers, it was apparent. I got to stop playing. My arms are sore. Punk rock hurts. I'm hurting so bad I want to cry. Just stuff like that. And being a member of OFF, I thought that I was in fairly decent shape, but the problem is, in OFF, most of the time we weren't headlining, which meant we were brought into a situation where we only need to play a 45, 50-minute set.
Right.
And when with the Circle Jerks, we're headlining unless we're playing festivals. And when you're playing a festival, they don't want you up there for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right.
They want you up there for 45 minutes. There's other bands that are playing. People are coming and going. You're part of this situation where there's all different types of music that's being played, and you're called in because you're going to bring up the energy level.
Right.
You're going to get people excited. But with the Circle Jerks, as opposed to OFF, we're not playing any 45-minute, 50-minute sets. Very rarely. We had a set list. Our working set list, I want to say, was at about 31, 32 songs. And we had 4 other songs that we were going to learn, and these would all be, when I say 4, I mean, I want to say 6, which would be revolving. We would have a revolving door as to, okay, what are we going to do for encore? What songs do we want to add to the set to remove a song that's not really going that well in that part of the set? So we still had about another 4 or 5 songs that we needed to learn. Work up some different arrangements for the songs. And getting back to when we were auditioning drummers, it was apparent that we needed to fucking get our breath back. We needed to get our air back. We needed to work up into playing shape. You just don't get up there and play these songs.
What?
There's a physicality to it. There's an athleticism to it. And if we don't have that, there's no reason for us to. There's no reason for us to be doing it. Yeah, the money's good, and the tour basically. Some people would say, well, it's just a cash grab. One of the drummers that's not playing with us was one of the guys that stepped up and said, "Well, you might as well just call it a cash grab because that's all it is." And then we said, well, why would you say something like that? And getting further into it, he eventually revealed that the only reason he wanted to do it wasn't because he hadn't played drums like this in 15, 20 years, but that it would provide him the opportunity to see his daughter in New York City. That was his excuse for doing it.
So
he said, I don't need the money.
Right.
I own 2 houses. I own a big piece of property up in Wyoming. It's like, okay,
So who did you settle on before?
Well, I'm not going to tell you that. That's the $64,000 question. That's for everybody to scratch their heads and go, well, Chuck Biscuits,
right?
Lucky Lehrer, Todd Swalla, who played in the Necros, whole list.
Yeah. Well,
Spit Sticks from Fear, Josh Freese. Josh Freese plays his I guess full-time band is A Perfect Circle, but he's played with No Doubt. He plays with the Vandals. He's a session drummer, so he keeps busy. So he was one of the guys on the list. All sorts of guys.
So as far as I know you had dates in Europe and beyond. I think you guys were booked for the Punk Rock and Bowling Festival in Vegas. This is the tour you had was taking you everywhere. I mean, it was, whether someone thinks it's a cash grab or not, there's a demand to see the Circle Jerks, and it's all over the world.
9 months. We all four of us committed to 9 months. And then as we were rehearsing and we were seeing some of the dates that were starting to get confirmed, all of the dates are going to be pushed back. And we want to say sooner than later, but we don't know what's going on with this virus.
Right.
We know that it's not a hoax. We know that when all is said and done, there's probably going to be a few million people that have lost their lives to this. One of the things that we can use as a gauge is looking at SARS. Remember SARS?
I do. Yep.
It never went away. SARS is still out there. I watched and listened to a guy said that there's 38 million different viruses that are out there. You know, that some of them are things that we don't worry about because our immune system and the way that the human body works, it just blows them right out of our system. But some of them don't move out of our system that quickly. You know, that's why we have an immune system. I'm a diabetic. I was originally diagnosed as a type 2 adult onset because mine didn't hit me until I was 42 years old. Recently, when I say recently, I mean a couple of years ago, I was told, no, you're a type 1. One of your body organs that aids in your immune system and helps you fight off all of this stuff had a breakdown. And that allowed your immune system to become battered and beaten down. So one of the things that we don't talk about throughout all of this is the fact that one of the major things in all of this is our immune system. A lot of people, they have terrible, horrible diets, and they smoke, and they're unhealthy, and all they're doing is just basically putting up a sign in front of their house saying, "Come and fuck with me." You know,
right.
It has to do with eating a fairly healthy diet, drinking a lot of water. I actually had heard two pandemic experts. One of the guys who worked on the Lyme disease, the spread of Lyme disease.
Right. Well, I've had Lyme disease, and it is no joke. And I got through it, fairly well. But I mean, I knew some people they're still fighting it, and it's been years and debilitating. So yeah, some of these things are just horrendous, and there are so many people that don't understand it and don't take it seriously, and are kind of denying the impact of this. But to me, it's like you look at people going into hospitals and talking to doctors. I mean, it's just an undeniable phenomenon.
Well, I have a friend over in the UK. He posted on his wall that he was feeling sick and that he can't work. He was working in an old folks home, and I said, well, get well, be well. And then he wrote me and said that he was taking it down off his wall because he didn't want people to know that he was sick. And I wrote him back and I said, no, that's the last thing you want to do. You want to let all of your friends and all of your people and all of your family know that you are sick. And then what you do is you tell them, where you work, because you're one of the working class, and it's like, who are the people that are really going to get fucked over by this besides the poor? Who are the people who are the people that carry this country on their back? Who are the people that carry the world on their back? It's the working class. And the working class are going to be the ones that are going to be the most affected by it. Senior citizens, of course, because we're seeing these outbreaks in all of these old folk homes. But they're the ones that are, some of them are sailing their ships into the sunset across the horizon. Some of them are riding their horse into the horizon and waving and singing happy trail. Okay, and that's, for me to make a comment like that, I'm trying to be humorous, but it's not a humorous situation. There are certain people that are affected by this. When all of a sudden now we have a wave of teenagers that are having strokes. Now all of a sudden we're finding out that this virus isn't just dry cough fever and lungs collapsing and pneumonia. We're now seeing that and hearing and reading about how it's damaging the heart and the lungs and the liver and the kidneys and the stomach. And so now this is like a multi-level thing. It ain't just, hey, you're going to get it and you'll have it for a couple of weeks and then it'll be gone. All of these people that are denying it, they are the ones that are going to allow it to continue to do what it's going to do. Getting back to SARS is still out there in little pockets. I, being in a band, having done as much traveling as I've done over the course of about the last 11 years, I've spent more time in airports than I have in my entire life. And you don't go into an airport unless your immune system is fucking happening, and not expect to walk out without carrying something along with you, because an airport is just nothing but a breeding ground. You have people coming and going from all of these different places. That's what SARS was. The Circle Jerks were on a tour up in Canada, and we flew out of Toronto. And the next day, the SARS epidemic broke out in Toronto. And it was brought over. It started because of the Chinese population. And we're not blaming them. It's not their fault. It's what they do. Unfortunately, these open air fucking wet markets, they're pandemic experts that have been going on and on for years and years and years. These places need to be closed down because they're just breeding grounds. This is where these diseases, these viruses, these airborne viruses, it jumps from some weird animal like a pangolin, which basically is just a hairy, large armadillo. Bats. They're saying maybe it went from a bat to a pangolin to a human, or however. But a lot of these viruses are carried by animals. We had the bird flu. We had the swine flu. They all start somewhere. These pandemic experts were saying these places need to be closed down. One of the guys wrote a report back in 2000, 2001. He said the Chinese government has to close these places down. We had MERS, which was basically could have been a camel spitting in somebody's face, but it was camels that one came out of the Middle East.
Yeah, I think though that if there's any silver lining in this disaster. One of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know if you're seeing that in California where you are, but I'm seeing it certainly in the Northeast, where people are starting, the tone of people is changing, because I think we all realize that we're in this, together, and the bile and the vitriol that used to be so present just a couple weeks ago seems to have eased up a little bit, and now we're all kind of being very respectful of each other's space. We're complying to some of the recommendations that are being put forth. I mean, to me, it's a pretty remarkable change. Not just how we're living, but just even how we're treating each other. I mean, if there's any good thing that comes out of it, I hope that's it, and I hope that sticks.
Well, I like what you're saying, but I want to argue with you because there's still a lot of people out there that the me's and I'm more important than you, and I don't need to give up any of my space, and I don't even need to wear a mask. I see a lot of that. I'm fortunate. I live in Los Angeles, but where I live in Los Angeles, it's called Los Feliz. And the last I looked, which was about a week and a half ago, we had only had 15 cases of coronavirus.
Yeah.
And we're a big city, but here's the thing about our big city in Southern California. We're spread out. It's not like New York City where you got a guy on the 10th floor sneezing out a window or coughing out a window, and that stuff has to go somewhere, and it starts falling down. And all of a sudden, as it's falling down, the wind picks it and blows it in somebody else's window, or, it's pretty brutal. In fact, getting back to Dmitry's kids live in New York. They live in New York City. They already had it. His kids had it before it became the big deal that it became.
Right.
They had it very, 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 very early on. Now, of course, they either picked it up in the subway or they picked it up at school, but all of their symptoms, dry cough, high fever, just like not being able to get out of bed, just achy and sore. They had this, but here's the thing, and I don't know how close they are to finding out if you have it means that you're not going to have it again. I think they've already disproved that. As for the vaccine, there's no vaccine for it. If they do come up with a vaccine, it's probably a minimum a year and a half to 2 years away.
And there's always the threat of a second wave of this, which is the other thing that they've been talking about for a while. That and that's the kind of thing that a lot of earlier pandemics had. People start to get anxious to get back out and live their lives, and they do it prematurely, and boom, all of a sudden, the second wave is just as dangerous, if not more so.
Well, and it normally, what does it take, 2 weeks for it to do whatever it's going to do to you if you come in contact with it? If you're around somebody else that has it 2 weeks from now, you're really gonna feel it. That's when it's supposed to put the womp on you. Yeah.
I hope we can get back to some level of normal at some point soon, but not too soon.
I don't believe that we are going to get back to a level of normal like what it was, just recently. We're seeing a lot of things that are happening that need to get fixed, that need to get repaired. And I keep bringing up the working class, and that is they need to be compensated. They need to be compensated so they're not reliant upon the government to send out $1,200 checks. And it's like I'm reading reports in some of these states where the checks come into the bank, and the first thing the bank does is they get to put their fucking grubby mitts into it. Like you owe us $60, but we'll take $100. And what are you going to do to us, or whatever they're doing? Having your wages garnished. That's what that is called. It's not that this money isn't for anybody else except the people that it's being sent to.
I think anytime you're relying on the government to solve any of your problems, you're already looking at trouble. And I think we've proven that. I mean, some states have responded better than others, and we here in Massachusetts, our governor's done a fairly decent job of it. New York's had good leadership, but not so much in others. And unfortunately, you wait for government and your leaders to make good decisions or to guide you through difficult times. It's it's a crapshoot. You either got it or you're not getting it.
This is true.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to live where I live. Although all of our politicians, when they get political and they give their speeches, it's supposed to be them being prepped for things to come, bigger things to come. And I don't like that. I don't like all of the showboating.
Yeah.
But as long as the stuff gets done,
that's what matters.
And we're moving in a good direction, then I can hang with that. But for leadership, they're certainly, like, all of the people at the top need to be. You remove the leader and put them on a ship, a sinking ship.
Right. And
all of the life preservers are basically cinder blocks and sash weights, large sash weights, and other larger pieces of heavy metal.
Yeah. So I know that there's a million things I want to ask you about your career, and I know we don't have the time to get to a lot of it, but I did want to say, after reading your book, for those of us who were in different areas of the country and didn't have the kind of the same kind of scene, that was certainly on the West Coast as opposed to the East Coast, I think your book really captures the whole thing. I haven't read any other book that really illustrates it that way. And I think I thought it was a really cool book and pretty informative. It's like, I can hear your voice in this book from beginning to end. It's like, oh, that sounds just like Keith Morris, and God damn it if it wasn't.
Well, I told the story, or excuse me, plural stories, and my friend Jim Ruland was the one that recorded them, and then he did whatever he needed to do to make the book move at the pace that it moved at. It moves like a punk rock record. I mean, the audio version of the book, which I'm not responsible for. That was somebody else. That was a guy that was hurting for work, and one of the people that were part of the parent company that had just purchased the book company that I did the book through made the decision to do the audio book without asking me if I would be willing to participate. The audio book is 9 hours long, and so I had one of the guys in one of the bands that I play in say, look, we can record you. And what we'll do is we'll put out 9 1-hour-long cassettes. I believe I talked with my friend Lee at Burger Records, which is a really cool records label down in Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he was interested in doing that. He said, yeah, we could do that. It was just a matter of getting permission from the book company, and it was going to my guy at the book company. He was kind of wishy-washy about it. He said, you just don't get to do that. You got to get permission from whoever, has control over all of it. So the last audio book that I was a part of was More Fun in the New World, which is a book that a guy named Tom DeSavia and John Doe from X put together, mm-hmm. where I think there's 25 stories in the book, and each person that wrote the story did the audio for the book. And I had a really good time doing that. And the guy that was producing it said because I told him I've already been asked to do a second book. And I said, I'm going to do a second book because I've got a bunch more stories. I mean, I got to tell the story about being a roadie for the Commodores. I mean, how could I not tell that story? And yeah, and being asked to be a roadie for Deep Purple by a guy who managed not only Deep Purple but a band called Angel, who were they were on Casablanca. You had Kiss, who were the evil guys. They're the guys that dress in black, and then you have Angel, who are the guys that dress in white, and they're the good guys. So he managed them for like 2 weeks, just long enough to see them actually play live and be around them as people, and he couldn't ditch them fast enough. Like, he hadn't signed any paperwork yet, so fortunately he had the opportunity to see them and be around them. But that's just one of the stories in the book. And I had a bunch of people saying, well, how come you didn't tell more stories about going to shows? It's like, I got a bunch more stories about that because I've seen hundreds and hundreds of shows.
Right. But a story like being a roadie for the Commodores is a much better story than probably half the shows you've seen.
You'd be surprised at some of the shows that I've been to. I went to a show. Leonard Skinner they just got off the Who North American tour, and the Who were promoting Quadrophenia, and I want to say Leonard Skinner was promoting, it was either their first or second record, and they played at the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is 300 people. And the bill was them and Shaka Khan featuring Rufus, or it was Rufus featuring Shaka Khan.
Right.
Tell me something good. Like we're looking at disco, a disco band opening for a southern rock band.
Right.
You're not supposed to put those kind of bands together. That's just friction, and you're looking for somebody getting their face punched in. And the setting before anybody played looked like it was going to be a three-way. It was going to be Death to Disco. The South's going to do it again, and the motorcycle Harley dudes that showed up, in their Levi vests. I forget what the name of their motorcycle club was, but there were like 20 of them, and they weren't there for peace and love.
That's not why you join a motorcycle gang.
But anyways, the whole night was it was genius. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I got stories like that. I got more stories to tell. And the gist of the book, because the book, my guy at the book company said, well, you're going to need to pitch me something. What are you going to pitch me? And I went back and forth with Jim, who is my co-writer. And he said, well, you've got the Circle Jerks World Tour coming up. You're going to be auditioning all of these drummers. You're going to be going through all of this drama. Who's sad and who's glad, and fending off, well, they're just in it for the money, and they're old guys, and how can they play like they used to, and how come this guy's not playing with you, and why is it this lineup, and why are you playing these songs? And it's just a typical line of people's bullshit.
Yep.
But it comes with the territory. He said, you're getting ready to do this tour, and you're going to go out on tour, and you're going to be having all of these situations happen to you on tour. I think basically what Jim was really suggesting was he just wants to have an excuse to go out there and hang out. He wants to go see the Rebellion Fest in Blackpool, UK,
Yeah.
or whatever. He had just got through finishing the Bad Religion book.
Yep.
And he got to go out on some of their dates. I guess for a writer, that's really cool to get on a jet and go someplace else to, get the lowdown.
But you know what? I mean,
It's like,
but you're celebrating the anniversary of group sex, which is, it's still a definitive moment in hardcore music, and I think it's not about the rules of who's playing with who or what. It's like, people love that music, and my argument has always been, listen, it doesn't matter what kind of music you listen to. If it's the music that you've enjoyed or has meant something to you, it almost always means something to you for the rest of your life. So if it's 1980 and you bought that album, that's a bracing 15 minutes of music that people still enjoy. So, if someone's complaining that it's a money grab, to hell with them. This is your work, your art, and people should be able to enjoy it.
Well, I love all of that you said. I wanted to. Not me, but I wanted to bring this up to the guys in the band. Somebody had said you should call your tour Keith's Retirement Fund Tour. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it's still not too late.
Ridiculous as that is, but is what this tour is. We've never got rich off of this. We lucked out, and at one point we didn't have to work day jobs. At one point we would go out on these just overlong, just grueling tours where we would be out for 3 months at a time,
right.
4 months at a time. And sometimes we would do that 2 or 3 times a year. So it was just,
yeah.
A lot of work. It's not an easy thing.
It is not too late to change the name of the tour, and I hope it gives you the comfort and serenity that every retiring man should enjoy.
Okay, on that, I hear you on that.
Hey Keith, it's a real pleasure to talk to you, and I do hope that when the tour does come back, if it does come back, that you do some East Coast dates, because it'd be great to see you guys live again.
Well, we are doing the East Coast. I mean, we're not doing this without going to all of the places we want to go.
Good.
And I initially said we'd cut out 9 months of our time, and then all of a sudden we started getting festival dates booked and realized that we are going to be getting asked to play other festivals. And festivals they're fun. There are a lot of people that hate festivals. Oh, it's too expensive, or I don't like all of these bands. There's only 3 bands that I want to see. There's 30 bands, and I only want to see 3 of them. Why are they doing this? And it's like, well, you play a festival because you're playing with a lot of different bands. With Off, when we initially went out, we said we are not playing the Warped Tour. We are not playing any of these festivals. We're playing with any of the bands that we know are going to ask us to play with them, who we eventually did end up playing with. We lucked out, and we got to play with Dinosaur Jr. We lucked out, and we played on tours. I mean, we played on festivals. We played a big festival called the Primavera Festival in Spain, and The Cure was headlining.
Very cool.
And Wilco and Yola Tango. And these aren't punk rock bands. These aren't hardcore bands. These are names that some of these people aren't even going to recognize. I know them. I love their music. I get to see these bands. I get to hang out with them in the mess hall, and it's all good. It's all cool.
Yeah.
We would go to the South by Southwest, and we would play. We played at Stubbs Barbecue. We played a daytime show. The headlining band was TV on the radio, and Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark played before them, and we played before Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. This would be Off, and this isn't supposed to happen. This is totally cool, because we know that somewhere down the line we're going to end up being on the 5-band gig where all of the bands pretty much come out of the same genre, or they all have the same influences, or just that whole thing. We did. I've done this all my life, and it's like I'd like a break.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, Keith, it's been, like I said, it's been fun talking to you, and I appreciate it. And I hope when you do write the second book, I get a chance to talk to you again.
Okay.
All right. Keith, thanks.
Right on.
All right. Be well and stay safe and healthy.
Okay, Mike.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you, Keith. Well, there you go. That's it. Let me know what you think. You can reach me at bax@rock102.com. Check out the Baxie's Musical Podcast Facebook page for all the latest information and updates. Be well, stay safe, watch your hands. Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.